Welcome into the Take the North podcast, special edition. We have another mailbag episode. I am the producer of the Take North podcast, Adam Studzinski. Alongside me is one of our hosts, Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. Any future questions or any questions submitted today on Twitter at Take the North Pod is how you can reach us there. You can also direct message myself on Twitter, and you can send us an email, takethenorthpod@gmail.com. You can listen on your Odyssey app. You can listen or watch, on YouTube and on the 670 The Score YouTube page, I should say. And, of course, you can listen on anywhere else you get your podcast. So, Dan, without any further ado, are you ready for some questions?
I am, Studs. I'm excited. When we put out the latest call for questions, it was almost instantaneous how many came pouring through. It tells you that in this off season that the interest and the inquisitiveness of our audience is at an all-time high, and we're going to tap in. There's some good questions, and I appreciate our audience for being engaged in that way, and hopefully we can repay them with some good answers and keep the discourse going.
So let's go ahead and dive into it. Our first question comes from Twitter. Again, at Take the North Pod is how you can get at us on Twitter, DMS, or just respond to us anywhere. So, and I wanted to pick out this one specifically because in our previous episode, David Haugh was all about the idea of signing Saquon Barkley. So here we go. This is from Tony Stacks is the fellow's name. How will having a rookie quarterback impact the Bears' approach in free agency? For example, does it make sense to sign a Saquon Barkley if they're not likely to win a Super Bowl this year?
It's a good question from Tony, and it's one that, as you know, Studs, I like to talk about a lot in terms of that label that I always throw out there, the splurge and surge mode, which is where you feel like you're positioned to make your run. Your chance at playing deep into January, ideally getting into February, and that's when you can really kind of attack some of those luxury signings with aggressiveness and say, like, this is it. Like, this is the piece that gets us over the top. The Bears aren't there yet. They're not going to be there, as Tony alludes to, with a rookie quarterback that is going to endure some bumps along the road. There's a growing process to all of this. The team can still get better while you're bringing along a rookie quarterback. You just have to know how hard you want to chase a championship and what you're willing to invest to do it. At this point, I think that the Bears have other things that they can do to improve their team for the long haul in ways that make more sense in terms of the investment that's needed. Saquon Barkley is a guy that obviously you look at him on paper and you go, okay, that's exactly the kind of guy you want to put next to a rookie quarterback because he can do a lot for you as a runner. He can do a lot for you as a pass catcher. He can take stress off. He's proven. He's played at a high level when healthy. But he also is getting up there with wear and tear. He's also getting up there with age and price tag, and so you have to make that decision as an organization. My guess is that Ryan Poles would prefer to make improvements elsewhere. I will wait eagerly to see what he does. But I think the running back position, particularly with things I know about the way they feel about Roschon Johnson internally, gives you an opportunity to just kind of figure that position out in different ways that don't force you to use that level of resources in a world where, you just have other things to accomplish first.
Yeah. See, I'm with you on this one. And I think that I'm on team don't pay big for running backs unless it's Christian McCaffrey. So all right, we'll go ahead and move on here. This one is from our email. It's again at takethenorthpod@gmail.com if you want to send us an email anytime. This one is from George Palmer, who I've had several interactions with on Twitter and on the email train. So I know he's a loyal listener and a follower of 670 The Score. George says, what is your confidence level that Ryan Poles will get this quarterback decision right? He passed on the opportunity to draft CJ Stroud, but is confident his team can, quote, identify talent on the field.
It's a good question. And the reason I pause before answering it is because there are so many layers to getting this decision right. And as we talked about in our previous episode, Studs, it's about more than just going through the pre-draft process of 2024, identifying the player that you think can be franchise changing, and then turning in the card on April 25th and going, we got our guy. There's a plan that has to be put in place. There are connections that need to be made. There is a vision that needs to come together and crystallize in a way where you give your young quarterback a chance to have a chance. The Bears historically have been very poor at establishing that springboard and that launching pad for young quarterbacks. Rex Grossman's a different story. Cade McNown's a different story, but we know that Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields had to reboot after their rookie seasons with new head coaches and new play callers. You don't want that to be the case. Right now, when you zoom out and you see this from a league-wide lens, you understand that the Bears are putting a lot of trust in Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron, and to a lesser extent Thomas Brown, at being the guys that can light the wick for the quarterback that they select. We're presuming it'll be Caleb Williams, and take him to levels that this franchise has never seen before. And so what's my confidence level in that? It can't be high, because you know me, Studs. I'm a see it to believe it guy. It doesn't mean it's low. It just means like I need to hear a lot more about the plan. I need to learn a lot more about who Shane Waldron is. I need to know something about Matt Eberflus's blueprint for fostering the development of a young quarterback. I don't know enough right now to have supreme confidence that just saying, okay, Caleb Williams is uber talented and most of the league sees him as a potential star, so they pick him and they're good. We've learned the hard way in Chicago that there's a lot more to it than just that. And so there is going to be a months-long, possibly years-long process of feeling out the ways that they are going to try to elevate Caleb Williams as they ask Caleb Williams to elevate them.
I think the only response I would have here, Dan, is, and I think that you are kind of thinking along the same lines as Dan Bernstein does on 670 The Score. The probability is, considering the history of this organization, is that they're going to get it wrong because that's what they always do. So it would be breaking history for them to get this right. So I remain optimistic, though, eternally.
I think I'm optimistic. Optimistic for me is a little different than confidence. And so you want to see it through. I will never saddle a current regime with the failures of their predecessors and the systemic problems that have existed prior, but it certainly sits there hovering like a cloud, until the sunshine is able to break through. And so you kind of have to fight that and see where they take it.
It's one of those things it's hard to ignore, because it's like, I know those guys Ryan Poles, Kevin Warren, Matt, they haven't been here, but we have. And so it's hard to ignore that. So moving back to Twitter now for our next question. This one is from Sam Will, the one I wanted here is Billy Wires on Twitter. We'll get to Sam's question in a little bit. Does it make economic sense to make a play for Christian Wilkins this coming week when free agency begins, considering the cap is going up and we will be on a rookie and the Bears will be on a rookie quarterback contract? This is presuming, of course, they do take Caleb Williams or someone else.
I don't know if it makes sense, but man, is it a dream expenditure. I mean, it just feels like the type of guy that if you woke up on Tuesday morning of next week and you were greeted by the news that the Bears had gone all in and found the sweet spot on a contract that brings Christian Wilkins to a defensive line that already includes Montez Sweat, to a defense that also has Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards and Jalen Johnson and Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon. All of a sudden you're going, oh man, you get those 2018 vibes again, where you're like, this group could be nasty. And if they're nasty, this could really take the team to levels that it hasn't reached in the last half decade. And so it's one I really, really am interested to see how it plays out. Now, look, like last year at this time, we went into free agency and we know the names that were being lobbed about as the guys that the Bears should go after, the Javon Hargraves of the world, the Mike McGlinchey on the offensive side of the ball. There, eventually, the price tag for some of those top shelf free agents gets out of line with where you want it to be. And Ryan Poles has shown himself as a disciplined free agent shopper in ways that I think he marries himself to the value that the Bears have on their free agent board and stays true to that as much as possible. So the practical side of me says that this is going to get too risky or too pricey for the Bears to finish and get to a point that they can do when another team can possibly pay through the roof and really overextend themselves for this type of signing. But that thought process just keeps creeping back in of like, man, you put that dude on the same defensive line as Montez Sweat, all of a sudden your ability to create pressure with the front four without having to do anything exotic is incredible. And then that door opens even more for the takeaway flood that we saw at the end of last year, where all of a sudden Montez Sweat came in and the Bears were intercepting the ball regularly again, and so you have those dreams and you see that it's there. And so I will just close this answer by saying it's the dream expenditure. My worry is that the asking price will ultimately get out of the wheelhouse for Ryan Poles, and they'll pivot in a new direction.
Right, and Ryan Poles. If you guys have talked about this, he's been fairly disciplined from what we've seen about having his mark that he's not going to pass, and that question also did come our way before we knew about the Jalen Johnson extension. So the Bears cap situation is slightly different now. So I haven't seen the official numbers about how that's affecting the cap for this season, but that there is that to keep in mind. We got time for one or two more here. So let's go back to Sam's question. Sam Will on Twitter that I teased a little bit ago. Again, it's at Take the North Pod on Twitter. You can also email us questions, takethenorthpod@gmail.com. Sam asks, why do Greeny, I'm presuming that's ESPN's Greeny, and others think Fields can contend for a Super Bowl with Pittsburgh and Atlanta, but think the Bears should trade him? On that note, it's only about the contract, right?
You really want to keep me here all day, don't you? Because that's a question I could answer for about 3 hours.
Try to be concise.
If the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Atlanta Falcons agreed with Greeny that Justin Fields was the missing piece that would turn them into an immediate Super Bowl contender, they would have put a offer on Ryan Poles' doorstep that Ryan Poles would have instantly accepted. There would be no holdup in Justin Fields' future as a quarterback. It also speaks to the fact that if you think he's that good of a quarterback, then why wouldn't you just keep him in Chicago? I think what we've seen in recent weeks is what we've alluded to on the podcast for a while, is that Justin Fields' limitations are very well understood across the league. His inconsistencies as a pure passer, his inconsistencies managing pocket poise, his inability to have any level of significant success down the stretch and in the fourth quarter of games is worrisome to people around the league. And so a market for his services has not materialized the way many thought that it could. What I think happens in the national landscape is that the Justin Fields highlight reel runs on a loop whenever they talk about Justin Fields. They show the 67-yard run against the Detroit Lions. They show the 178-yard rushing performance against the Miami Dolphins. They show the pass to go ahead against the Steelers on Monday night as a rookie. The highlight reel is intoxicating. You immerse yourself in the entire Justin Fields experience and you realize, oh, there's a pass that just hit Michael Schofield in the back of the helmet. Oh, there's one of his 19 fourth quarter turnovers, including 9 in his third season. Oh, there's some inability to manage pressure in a way where he took an unnecessary sack. And oh, by the way, on one of those unnecessary sacks, he just hurt his thumb and he's going to be out for the next month. The Justin Fields experience viewed in its totality is one that is defined by inconsistency. It's defined by an inability to reach the highest levels of quarterback play on a regular basis. The outside world tends to only see the Fox NFL Game Break and the highlight reel and the things that show the flashes that tell you he has every single thing in there to be a high-level quarterback. Here's my analogy, Studs. I don't know how often you play golf, if at all, but I could stand on the tee of every single golf course I play and say, I can par this hole. There's no doubt that ability's in me. I can hit a drive down the middle. I can hit an iron onto the green. I can, either one putt or two putt the hole and get out of there with a score I'm pleased with. Well, I've broken 80 in my life 5 times. I've played golf probably 7,000 times. There's something called consistency in this world where best case scenarios only materialize every so often. And so that's been the Justin Fields experience. He's made 38 starts. He's averaged 174 passing yards per start over 3 years in the NFL. And that's why he is on his way out of Chicago. And it's why most likely the way the market is shaping up right now, he's going to have to go compete for a starting job somewhere rather than be the plan A for a team that, like Pittsburgh or Atlanta, that sees him as the missing piece to a championship contender. Sorry to ramble, but that's my my way to answer that question.
Hey, no, there's no problem. I think you answered it pretty well there. Like the summation would be the people clamoring for him to say that he would win in those spots. And I'm a guy that has been pretty supportive of Justin Fields the whole way, but I would guess that Michael Greenberg has not watched intently every single Justin Fields start when he's a noted Jets fan. That's all I would just put that out there. So, and that's probably the case for a lot of these national guys. They're just not watching to the same, and maybe they are. Guys like Matt Bowen watch every start, right? But
sure,
not all of them do. This one, if we got time for just one more, this one's a fun one that I think can be pretty quick. This is from James Gregory on Twitter. If you had the first overall pick in the draft and could select any player in history to play in the modern game with this Bears roster, who would you pick and why?
It's kind of a no-brainer, right? I mean, it's the guy that's holding up the Lombardi trophy all the time. You just like, give me Patrick Mahomes and 52 other dudes that we pull out of the VFW, and let's go try to win a championship.
Yeah, I'm with you. You read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, give me Patrick Mahomes and we'll go win Super Bowl.
I mean, obviously, like Brady would figure into the conversation probably, but when you look at just the dynamic ability of Patrick Mahomes to do things in today's game that allow you to be a little bit more of an athletic dynamo and do some things and still have that, what I think is kind of that underrated cutthroat edge to him when it comes to nut cutting championship time. Mahomes is my pick, and you ride that for as long as it'll go.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think that's an easy one, but a fun question. So thanks again to everyone that offered questions. So we'll wrap things up here on the Take the North podcast. Again, any future questions, we'll keep doing this throughout the off season. There's still some more that we didn't get to this time. You can email takethenorthpod@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter @TakeTheNorthPod. For Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune, I'm Adam Studzinski. I produce the Take North podcast. Download, listen, subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, and of course in the free Odyssey app, and watch us on YouTube, the 670 The Score YouTube page. Thanks so much for all the questions, and we'll catch you next time.